Hi, I'm Pete Hotman, and I've written this book called How to Steal a Car. I like the cover. It's got the little toy police cars pursuing the little toy red convertible. Very nice. And on the back, a red convertible driven by an invisible person being pursued by a New York City police car. The book actually takes place in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I don't know what the New York City police car is doing there, but this is an uncorrected proof. So let's get into it. I'm going to be reading scenes from the first part of the novel. I'm going to read it quickly because it seems appropriate for a book about car theft. So let's get started. The way this whole thing got started was completely coincidental. Not like I planned it or anything. Jen and I were at Ridgedale and got kicked out of Abercrombie & Fitch because Jen was carrying around this enormous drippy waffle cone. So we went outside and sat on one of the benches in front of Macy's so she could suck down the rest of it. We were talking, watching people walk to and from their cars when I noticed the salesman type guy, younger than our parents but way older than us, score a prized parking slot close to the front entrance. The guy got out looking very pleased with himself and set his car keys on the hood and started digging in his briefcase. His keys slid off the hood and landed by his feet. He didn't notice. I looked at Jen, but she was having some kind of crisis with her cone. A couple seconds later, the guy found what he was looking for. He closed his briefcase and took off toward Macy's entrance, passing right by us. I opened my mouth to tell him he'd dropped his keys, but for some reason I didn't. I said to Jen, "That guy dropped his keys." I walked over to his car and picked them up. When I got back, Jen was staring at the last inch of her waffle cone with this tragic expression on her face. "I didn't get a malted milk ball in the bottom," she said. "You have to go to Cold Stone for that," I told her. Well, that sucks. It did suck. No malted milk ball, but what could you do? Jen walked the soggy tip of her cone over to the cans on the other side of the entrance and tossed it into the recycling. "Wrong can," I said. She shrugged and wiped her fingers on her butt. "We better go find him," she said. "Find who?" "The key guy." "I'm sure he's got another set." I put the keys in my purse. Jen looked at me like I was the psycho, but she was the one who just threw her ice cream cone in the recycling can, so I ignored her. "Let's go back to Abercrombie," I said. "I want to try on that top with the rhinestones." "You know you'll never buy it. It might actually look good on you." Jen had some very definite opinions about my fashion sense. She thought I dressed like a nun, which was not completely untrue. "You never know," I said. "Maybe today I'll buy something pink and sparkly." I should mention here for those of you who are maybe a little slow on the uptake, the narrator of this book is a 15-year-old girl, not a 57-year-old man. I know it's difficult for some people to suspend their disbelief, so there's something I can do to help you out with that. Oh, that is grotesque. It's a good thing I wasn't born a woman. I used to have hair a lot longer than this, but I never went blonde. I kind of like it. It makes me look spunky and vivacious, don't you think? Well, let's get on with this. How I usually dress. Like an off-duty nun, just like Jen says. No one on earth owns more black and gray. My idea of festive, black pants with a gray blouse. Even my mother thinks I lack fashion sense. "You should wear something fun," she says, often upon presenting me with something fun, like polka dot shirt or striped socks or red shoes. Yeah, she actually bought me a pair of red shoes. I do not wear red shoes or striped socks. I do not wear blue jeans or any other color of denim. I don't want to look like every other girl. I don't want people to judge me by my clothes. I have other reasons too. More on that later. I do like to shop, though, and when Jen and I get into it at the mall, I'll try on anything. The more colorful and bizarre, the better. But not in the real world. It drives Jen and my mom crazy. And speaking of crazy, this wig is kind of driving me crazy. It itches. I think it's made out of some petrochemical extrusion or maybe yak hair or something. So, if you don't mind, I'm going to put Dolores back together here. This is Dolores. And ask you to crank up that old suspension of disbelief as I continue to read back to the car keys thing. I figured I'd hang on to them. I liked the idea of having car keys in my purse, and that's probably all that would have happened, except that a week later, I found out where the key guy lived. I was driving my mom to book club, an unutterably boring way to spend 2 hours, but I had homework to do, and it was a chance to get in some driving practice. I got my permit last spring. I passed the written test, so it was legal for me to drive as long as I had an over 21 adult in the passenger seat. The problem was, my parents hardly ever let me drive at all because my dad did not passenger well, and my mom always had some excuse, like she was in a hurry and she didn't want me to get a speeding ticket before I even got my license. Well, book club was an opportunity, because this was the sort of book club where the women don't even bother to read the book and they each toss back like 6 glasses of Chardonnay apiece and spend more time dishing than book talking. My mom would have a serious DUI-worthy buzz going by the time things broke up. And I was the designated driver because the law doesn't say anything about the over 21 person being sober. So I drove her over to Betsy's. We went in, I grabbed a brownie from the sideboard and planted myself on the periphery of the reading group to read my own summer novel, the incredibly thick Moby Dick, while tuning in now and then to the juicier bits of gossip. I think I ended up reading about 10 pages. It was actually quite funny in places. The book, I mean. It was on our way home with my mom chatting boozily about Ginny Allstrand's sudden suspicious weight loss and the declining quality of Betsy Charlesworth's deviled eggs that I saw the key guy. I probably wouldn't have recognized him, except he happened to be getting out of the same familiar-looking car with the same familiar-looking briefcase, and he had that same hurried look I remembered. He was only like 5 blocks from our house, which I guess makes him a neighbor. You see what I mean about coincidental? "Turn here," my mom said. "I've only lived in this neighborhood my whole entire life," I said. "You're 15 years old." I gave her a look. "I can count." "Are you going to tell me how many glasses of wine I had?" "No." "Good. Don't mention it to your father either." That night, I called Jen and made her promise to meet me at the Burger King at midnight. It took some convincing, but I told her I had this secret, and if she ever wanted to know what it was, she had to show up. She said okay, and after we hung up, I started working on homework. Never mind that 10th grade didn't even start until September, the American educational system gone berserk. Not only did I have to read a classic novel from a list they gave us and report on it, I'd never have picked Moby Dick if I'd known how long it was. I also had to write a 500-word essay of acceptable quality on how to do something. How to tie a shoe, how to apply lip gloss, how to become a vampire, how to write a freaking 500-word essay, all for an extra half point added to my language arts grade. I worked for like half an hour and only got 35 words written, 465 to go. Good thing I still had 2 months to work on it. I got to the BK first and bought some fries. Jen took forever to get there. I was sitting at one of the outside tables, fishing little crumbles of French fry from the bottom of the bag and thinking about all the times Jen had disappointed me. Like the time we were supposed to go to camp together and she backed out at the last second, leaving me friendless and bored for 2 weeks at camp, wanting to make me puke. Finally, she showed up at the BK. "You're late," I said. "Look at you," she said, "all ninja." I was wearing my black Pilates tights and a black cotton hoodie. I pulled the hood up over my head. "Come on." I grabbed her hand. "I don't get to eat?" "Later." She complained practically the whole way, all whiny because I wouldn't tell her what we were doing. I shushed her as we approached the house, staying close to a row of lilac bushes. We were in luck. I'd been afraid the guy would put his car in the garage, but there it was, parked in his driveway. I unlocked the driver's door, slipped behind the wheel, put the key in the ignition, and turned it. The car started right away. I waved at Jen to get in. She shook her head and pressed her body back into the lilac bushes. I put the car in gear and backed out of the driveway. I drove around the block. When I got back, Jen had left the shelter of the bushes and was walking quickly down the sidewalk toward home. I pulled up alongside her and rolled down the passenger window. "Need a lift?" My voice sounded weird. Jen stuck her head in the window and said in a loud whisper, "What are you doing?" "Going for a ride," I said. "Are you crazy?" "Maybe. Get in." I didn't think she was going to do it. But then she opened the passenger door and hopped inside. Her cheeks were flushed. I knew her heart had to be banging like crazy. "Go," she said. "Go, go." We went. That's some scenes from the beginning of How to Steal a Car. Available at your friendly neighborhood bookstore, September 1st, 2009, or at your local library. Thanks for listening.